Hello and welcome to As We May Think. This is a new series where I'm going to start trying to mentor some junior developers and see if I can do anything to help them with whatever they happen to need. So in this case, our guinea pig for the day, the very first mentee, if you will, is Jonathan. Jonathan is a professional software developer. And let's look at some of, I've had everybody fill out a form on this one. So he has formal schooling in computing. He has a BFA in web design and interactive media. He has done front-end web development and web design for the last 8 years. And I love this one. I asked about the personal experience with computing, and he says, I became interested in computing and all things related when I got an old broken computer from a dumpster and I fixed it up for myself. After that, family and friends all wanted their computers to be fixed up for free. That's a great story. I love that. So I asked what he hoped to get out of mentoring, and he says, I hope to get a few steps closer to being a full-stack developer, and that's really the only question he had at the moment, is I want to set up a project from the start with Angular as a wrapper for certain things, and the rest to be web components with a back-end. So at least at the moment, we're going to kind of focus on the back-end portion of things, and then we're going to try and bring in Angular. I don't know how much recording will get done today. Jonathan has to leave in about 45 minutes or so. But we'll do as much as we can, and then we will probably do future shows on this. And I'm hoping to find other people to go into a mentoring relationship because, hey, when it comes right down to it, a lot of people have the same questions or similar questions. What helps one person might help a whole lot of other people. And I want to say, Jonathan, I really appreciate your being willing to let me record this and share it with others. Say hi to everybody, Jonathan.
Hi, YouTube world. Um, I'm stunned that, I'm going to get to learn everything you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. So, with the laundry list you had in mind of the things that you wanted to learn, I came up with kind of a fairly straightforward way of doing it. So I wanted to say, okay, let's try and cut this down to where we don't have as many mountains to climb right at the beginning. Specifically, I think we're going to avoid setting up a server with Apache and then also Node at the same time. I think that's it's unnecessary, especially for a little side project. Node is perfectly capable of serving up our static files for us. So by just having one piece of software, I think that will make everything a little bit easier. We'll go from there, and we will actually make sure it can come up, serve up some static files, and provide an API endpoint for us. We will then create a CLI client, an Angular CLI client. We'll use their little setup tool to set one up. Then we will have that client served up from the server, so that again the server is serving up all the app, both the back end and the front end. And we'll see if we can get everything onto GitHub. And once we've done that, we could go over and create a DigitalOcean droplet, a virtual machine out in the cloud. And that virtual machine we can deploy the software to, and at that point we should be able to actually have it deploy, and everybody should be able to see it. It'll be a complete front end, back end with an API call if we want it, and it's out there on the web. So let's get started, see what we can do. I'm using, as I usually do on this show, Visual Studio Code. Jonathan also has Visual Studio Code installed. And we're using Live Share, which is a capability that Visual Studio Code has so that multiple people can all work simultaneously on files, and even we can have shared terminals, and the shared terminals be available to everybody to use. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to start with Express, and as I said, we're going for something extremely simple on this one. We're going for, let's just go for the traditional Hello World version of things. And the server, we'll just create an index.js. And I'm pasting in the kind of their version of Hello World. Their version of Hello World is basically just enough to come up and serve up one endpoint which provides a web page which just says Hello World. We can build from there. If you look at some of the past videos I've done, then you know that Express has the ability to serve up static files as well. And, well, if you want to get right down to it, Express can have almost anything work in it. It can have there's so many plugins and packages that we can have in here. You can do virtually anything you need to do. But we're just going to make sure that it can do serving up of static files first. And let's see.
So I have a question, John.
Sure. That's the whole point of this.
Why do we need Java backend developers?
Okay, so he's alluding to the fact that we both happen to work at the same place, and we do have a Java backend where we are, where we work presently. That's because of history. The original was written in Java, and so we are still in Java. I don't want to diss the Java people. I happen to love JavaScript, but I'll be honest, I didn't always love JavaScript. I really used to love Java pretty well. It worked well for me, and JavaScript was pretty broken, 8 or 10 years ago. It was pretty bad shape. Now, obviously, it looks like nobody could beat it. It looks like it's the best thing in the world. But its history is not all smooth sailing. So let me put in the express.static. So this is basically a piece of middleware that's provided with Express itself. Helps if I spell it correctly. Alright, so what this does is basically it says take the current directory I'm running in and then put this path on the end of it. We're going to call it public. And then this basically says I'm going to serve up all the static files that are in the public directory to the end user. If you want to see some of my other videos, some of the stuff I've done with live coding did this as well. But we're going to extend this a little bit more. Some of the stuff that I didn't show in the live coding, for example, one thing in particular I'd like to have is a logger in here. And actually, we also need path as well. I can't afford to forget path because I just used it. Const path. Okay, we're using this just to put our path together. And then finally, we're going to get a logger here. And the reason I want the logger, we don't need the logger, but it's helpful in that we can use it to, if it's set up to its default form, it tells about all of the endpoints that get accessed. And I find that useful. And it's darn near free. We just have to make sure the package is installed. All right.
The package is called Morgan?
The package is called Morgan. So let's go ahead and... Actually, if you do me a favor, can you get access to the terminal? Is that one shared for you?
Yes. Let's see.
Okay, in that case, could you go ahead and install both the... well, actually, we don't need... Go ahead.
Sorry. Is this terminal right here, right?
Yes, this terminal should be shared to you, hopefully. If not, then I can probably share it. Let's see, can I share it here?
'Cause I don't seem to be able to type in it. Oh, I have to request access.
Nope, I've got a shared terminal. All right, make the terminal read right for everyone. Yep, we're good.
There we go. You can see now?
Can indeed.
Okay.
So go ahead and do an install both the... let me get rid of this up here. Install both Express and Morgan if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
to do...
Express and Morgan, you say, right?
Mm-hmm. These two packages you see right up here.
Oh, okay. And I can probably just do both on one line, right?
You can, yeah. And you don't have to install path because that's a standard part of the Node package. And the Node itself. Node includes path by itself.
Yeah, that was my question. I wasn't sure if Morgan came with Express or that was a separate package.
It's actually a separate package. So sometimes when you're looking at other people's code, it is going to be sometimes difficult to tell what things that they're using are standard things and which things that they're using are some other NPM package. But I'm not sure what the solution to that is. You just kind of have to search with search online to find out the answer to that, I guess. All right, so are we set up? I'm going to separate this one out because I want to point out how different this line is from some of the others. All right, so that is complete. You installed both of those two. Oh, wait a minute. Why did it complain? Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. No, I'm not in the wrong directory. Oh, you're in the wrong directory. Hold on. I bet you're in the wrong directory. Let me see.
Oh, I thought it would have opened. I didn't realize. I thought it would have opened in the...
That's okay. Here's what we're going to do. Move. There we go. Let's see. Looks like a bunch of stuff is installed. Oh, and I'll show you a trick. We forgot to create a package.json before we installed all that stuff. So in the old days, at least I had to do it. I had to go back and I had to either reinstall the packages with save after I created an npm package.json file, or I had to go edit it manually by hand. That's not needed anymore. They fixed all that. So if I do an npm init-y, -y says answer yes to everything they ask me, and so it just basically takes a bunch of defaults and it creates a package.json without asking you any questions.
I actually see a package lock already.
You see a package lock, which lists the exact versions of the packages that were installed, but you don't see a package.json, which specifies which packages we want and what kind of packages they are. So I just created that one, and it went ahead and created dependencies, and Express and Morgan were added automatically because you had installed those.
Okay.
Let's see if we can now actually make our thing work. Let's just do nodemon index.js. All right, let's see. Yay. Okay. So right off the bat, that is working. Now let's take this a little bit further. Let's go ahead and... I had nodemon already installed. Let's go ahead, just in case somebody didn't have nodemon installed, I want to show that one real quick. Nodemon-g, sorry, npm install nodemon-g. So I don't need to do this. It's already installed for me. This basically says install nodemon. Nodemon is a package that will run your Node apps just like if you typed node, but it watches files underneath the directory. If it notices any JavaScript files change or certain other kinds of files change, it will automatically restart the server automatically and then load up with all of the changed files. So it just, as you make changes, it just keeps reloading itself over and over again. And I usually install that one globally, that's what the -g is, so that I have access to it from all my projects, because it's something I use regularly. All right, so we've... Go ahead.
I was just saying that's pretty cool too.
It is neat. It's very helpful. There's a very similar tool called Forever, which I regularly use, and we might use it later on the server. Forever tries to make sure that if a server crashes, it'll also automatically restart itself. It's a little different than nodemon. If nodemon sees crashes, it says, hey, I don't want to restart this if I haven't seen changes out of your source code. It might just be that you've written bad code. Whereas Forever tries to be a production tool, and it says, hey, your server crashed, it may have run out of memory or whatever, I'll automatically restart it for you. And only if it crashes like a whole bunch of times in a row does it say, forget it, I'm not going to keep restarting this and letting it just crash over and over again. Alrighty, so that actually went pretty quick. Let's go back up to the client directory, and let's use Angular to try and install a client for, and actually, I'm sure you could do this just as easily as I could. Let's go ahead and, if you would be so kind, do the npm install-g Angular CLI into this machine if it hasn't already got that. I don't know if it has or not. And then afterwards, and we'll do this too. And actually, let me do one thing. I don't know why it keeps giving you errors here. I wonder if it expects you to use sudo. Let's do that. Since that's a global tool.
At the same time.
Okay, go ahead and use sudo. All right, let me type this in. Hopefully this won't give any errors. I think it's just trying. Normally when I do all of my recording, I actually have a second user on my machine called Screencaster. Screencaster has almost nothing installed in there except the things that I need, browsers, Visual Studio Code, stuff like that. The whole point of it is to have kind of a distraction-free environment that doesn't have stuff popping up throughout a video recording and whatnot. However, that user doesn't necessarily have all the same privileges that I have. I should probably add that user to the sudoers. Haven't done it yet. Oh, that looks like that took care of it. So let's go ahead and why don't you let me go back up one directory, and I'm going to do, actually that should be fine. So if you'll do ng new and then client.
Yeah, give me just a second. Pulling up the Angular page.
Sure. I don't think you'll need to do too much more than that. Pretty much the only thing after that's going to be the ng build right away.
What do you want to call these up?
Client, because I've already named the directories client and server. And I should be in the directory just above client.
Okay.
That's up to you, sir.
I guess we're going to need it at one point, right?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of app you're looking to build with this. Again, dealer's choice. What do you like?
That's definitely sucks.
Okay. And here come the files. Okay, while that's happening, so the way I'm actually going to connect these two together in an easy way is probably, I don't know, maybe it's unconventional, but what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to say, let's try and keep this simple. I mean, we've tried to keep it simple so far. Let's keep this simple, and what we'll do is we'll build out the Angular application. We'll just go over the default one to start with. And normally, the directory where it builds all that stuff, the distribution directory is not marked for Git. It's marked as ignore for Git, because you don't want to check it into the Git repo when you actually check everything in. And we can say no on that. And so I'm going to actually turn that off. I'm going to let us check in the build products into Git. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a link between the public directory in the server and the build directory for Angular, so that what the server is serving up is the contents of the build from the Angular CLI. So you can actually, you'll have 2 separate directories. You can work on each one independently. But when it comes time to serve up the files, the Node server will know how to do that because it's just pulling the files from the other side. So let's go into here, and let's just for a second, we will edit the get ignore here for the client. And right now you'll notice it is ignoring the dist directory. I don't want it to do that. Okay. This says I have changes. Do I have changes? Doesn't look like I have changes. Okay. So, what we will do now is we will... we need to run ng build. What am I saying? We need to run ng build because we haven't yet actually built the client. So if you... Yeah, please.
Where are we anyways?
We're in client.
Okay.
No, we don't need the serve. We just need the build, actually, in this case.
Okay, because we're gonna actually run from the
exactly
setting, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So now let's go ahead and put that capability into the other one. I will open up another terminal for me to work in real quick. And I actually had to look this up. So if anybody thinks I'm some kind of Unix guru, I'm not, sadly. You're probably thinking, having watched some of my videos, that I'm not much of an anything guru, but nevertheless, this is actually how I'm going to connect the two together. I'm going to say link -s client dist client. This basically just says, go take this directory and link it to the public directory where I am right now. So now if we actually look at inside public from here, it should look like whatever's being built over in the other directory.
Cool.
Okay, so that's all built. So let's take this one and we'll go back up to the server side real quick. And theoretically, index. All right, let's see what happens when we fire this puppy up. So, literally, that just took care of seeing we are going through our Node server, and it is serving up the public directory from the Angular CLI build products. So we've just made a server, we've made a back-end, a front end. The two are, they're basically under the same directory so that we can all check them in as one. I'm going to just put them in as one repo on GitHub. And then I'm going to deploy them as one piece. And so far, hopefully, this should seem like a fairly easy solution for you. So let's go ahead and let's go over to GitHub real quick.
Before you deploy,
sure.
You wanna run through the directory setup that you have, and then recap on the points of what we've done so far.
Absolutely. So here is the highest level directory structure for what we've got. There's a Jonathan directory with a client and a server under it. The server for this side is pretty much just a vanilla Express. Express is a package that you put into Node to make it easier to write servers, because although Node is designed to help you write servers and to write command line applications, it still can use packages to help it, and Express is one of the most popular ones. It definitely makes it easier to write a server. So what we did was we took the sample app from Express and we added a couple of bits onto it. We added a logger. You're actually seeing the output of that logger here. You're actually seeing the files being requested and returned. That's what Morgan is doing for us. And we're setting it up to automatically serve all the static files from a directory. Then we linked this directory right here over into the dist directory over here so that these files from the Angular side could all be deployed, could all be served up to the end user. And then we built a just plain vanilla demo app using the Angular command line interface, just telling it to stick the most base level one in there, and then immediately go ahead and build it. And then we're using those build products for our example. At this point, we've got both sides, and we're pretty much ready to go ahead and try distributing it, or at least checking it in, and then actually deploy it somewhere. So if we come here, we can do git init.
I don't see distribution on my side through the share link.
You should. Did you look under client?
Yeah, I'm inside client.
Can you see it from the command line here, or can you not see it from the from here in your Visual Studio Code?
I can see it on your screen share, but I can't see it on the share Visual Code link.
Interesting. I wonder why.
Under client, I see end-to-end source, which is where our app is going to live, and then I see all the root files,
mm-hmm.
And then I see server.
Mm-hmm. And you see all the ones underneath it.
Yeah, I see everything inside server.
Interesting.
I see no modules, index, package lock, package.
I wonder if there's something different about the ownership or the attributes of that directory. Well, just before we do the rest of this, let me go over here just as a curiosity.
That's
so
why I was
look at dist. Screencaster owns it, and staff drw execute. The execute flag is normally always on for directories, so that looks normal. Huh. I'm not sure why it wouldn't pick that up and share it with you on live share. That's very strange. It shouldn't interfere with anything that we're going to do in this case. We're lucky because we don't actually plan to modify any of the files in there directly. They're just going to be built. So it doesn't technically matter for us, but it's an interesting curiosity. Hopefully that won't come back and bite us later on. We'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I would do a git init so that we have a directory now for out here in the root. There's now one git repo for both of these two. And I'm going to go ahead and do a git add. Oh, you know what? I should probably add, before I do this, I should probably add a git ignore to ignore some stuff. Because otherwise we're going to get a bunch of stuff we don't want. Alright, we definitely do not want node modules. And let's see if there's anything else that we don't want. Let's do a git status. Git add. Oh, that's interesting. So that tells us, okay, so if you're wondering what this error message is telling us, it tells us that it looks like when Angular CLI set up the project on its own, it went ahead and made it a full Git repo without bothering to ask us if we wanted a full Git repo. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so that's going to add everything under client. Wonder if that's going to add more stuff than what we want. I should probably know how to tell that, but I don't. Let's see. client. Looks like it's not going to grab too much stuff. Okay, good. I think. All right, let's see what happens if we do this. All right, so let's go over to GitHub. And I've already got, I already have an account on GitHub. And then I've also gone ahead and created a repository. And you know what I should have done? I should have probably cloned this down. But it's okay. Let's see what happens if I try to connect the two. Let me think about this a second. Actually, I'm going to have to look this up real quick. So if you watched or didn't watch, but anyway, there's another video out there that's all about getting hosting for your applications and also to get domain names. In this case, I'm going to use DigitalOcean. I'm going to provide a link below. If you actually click that link and you subscribe for, not subscribe, but if you pay for a server and you keep that server for an extended period, I think it's a year, then I get a small credit for my server costs. That is the extent of anything I will get out of this. So this is not a commercial for them, and I am not paid to say this. That you heard the entirety of the financial benefit I get from this.
Full disclaimer.
Full disclaimer, exactly. So let me log into this puppy, and let's see. Boy, they keep changing the homepage. I just want to log in. There it is. All right. Oh, good. You can't see my password, which is good. And they want a 6-digit code. Okay, so as you can see, I currently only have one server, and I have a couple of domains that are run through that server. But we're going to create an all-new droplet. That's what they call their individual virtual private servers. So I'm going to create one, and I'm just going to make it the latest version of Ubuntu as of our recording this. I'm going for a standard one, which is basically not as much horsepower, not as much of everything. But then it's cheaper. So they start you if you look at the list, it starts you at like the $40 a month one. We're going for the ultra cheap one here. This is not even a whole penny an hour. So if you just want to play with this stuff, keep in mind you can play with it for a long time for a dime. However, if you terminate before the end of an hour, I think they round it up and it ends up a penny. So just be aware of that. I'm not going to enable backups. I'm not going to add any additional block storage. The server comes with 25 gigabytes of storage, and it comes with a gigabyte of RAM and a whole terabyte of transfer. Needless to say, I don't normally have anything that utilizes that. I do not want my server in Bangalore. Let's go for some place a little closer than that. I'm going to go for one of the New York servers, okay? So I pick a server farm where it will actually put it. And then I have a bunch of different options. I don't think any of these actually cost me anything. I'll go ahead and turn on monitoring. I think that's generally a good thing to have on your servers. And I can actually show you some monitoring from one of my servers. I already have a SSH key with them. It's this one called MacBook key. That key is a secure key that will automatically be put on the server, so I can SSH to the server without having to use usernames and passwords. So they'll go ahead and put that on for me. I only want one. I can actually pick a name for it. We'll just say Jonathan. And then we can also put tags on it and do some other stuff. We're not going to do any of that. We're just going to hit create droplet. So now within about a minute, we will have a running server.
Does it come with some sort of UI?
No, no, it is a. In this case, I picked Ubuntu, so it is a Linux server,
Yeah.
and we will be going to it very much like Linux servers out in the cloud for lots of different environments. I know you've done similar things at work. Not everybody has. So what we'll do is I will now go to that server, SSH root at, and that IP address. There we go. It just probably wasn't up yet. There we go. All right. So let's expand this a little bit so we can see.
And you already pushed successfully to the repo, right?
I have pushed to the repo, and I haven't pulled yet to this machine. So if I do get over here, I do have get. So what I can do is I can actually pull down to this machine. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to install Node onto this machine. This is a virtual machine in the server. This is not that I'm connected to at the moment. It's the one that we're paying for right here. And we're going to we're going to install Node.js, the same thing we were using on our client machine. We're going to install that out on that server. And the way we can do that, I think we want 10. So let's do this. I only want this first line initially. There will be a link to this, obviously, in the show notes. I'll try to include the link to the repo, link to the DigitalOcean key or basically the link that is my affiliate key, and all the bits and pieces that we've used thus far. So Node should be installed now if we type this version. Oh, okay. Apt install Node.js. Let's make sure that's what they suggested. They suggest something slightly different. Let's do what they say.
So the first thing you did was install Node.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second command is doing what? The CLI?
Basically, what the first one did, it didn't actually install Node. What it did was install a list of repos from which the server could get Node. That's what we did. We told the server, here are some repos where you could go get Node if somebody asked to install Node. And then what we're doing now is actually telling it, hey, now that you know about those repos, go get Node from them and install it on this machine.
Okay. So they're basically expecting you to install it from a trusted source.
Exactly. And in this case, that is what this is. This is a trusted source from that Node themselves links to. So if you're curious how I got here, there's an other downloads for a given version of Node, and then from here, I believe you can go to. Let's see, how was it? I found this. I think this was it. Installing Node via Package Manager, and then from there I found Debian and Ubuntu, and that got me, yes, official Node.js binary distribution. So it was several links down, but ultimately I found how to do the installation the way they recommended from the Node people themselves. All right, we've got that installed, so we should be able to say node -version, and of course npm version. Yay, all our bits are installed. Cool. So now let's actually try deploying.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'd say, were you going to try to upload the project?
Yes, I am. So I should be able to explain why I couldn't get that key on there, but I don't actually know. So that's a real mystery to me. Let's see if I can successfully now do the git clone as we wanted to. Oh. All right. Let's try that again. Okay, what should it be? Holy Moses, that was painful. Alright, now I have to recreate the link that we had before because obviously the link doesn't come across to an all new machine. So we're going to recreate the link that we had before so that the public directory here is connected to the directory in the other spot as well. So that is ln-s. Now obviously the path is not going to be exactly the same again. It's going to be, we'll go with /root Jonathan client dist client. Interesting. It did actually try and check something like that in. Huh. Fascinating. Alright. So we should be able to do that again. Okay. That worked as it should. So now let's try this. Let's do... we're going to use forever instead of... NodeMon, for the reasons I mentioned earlier in this. Let's just see if this works now. Okay, we're going to do forever. Start. Help see if I'm in the right directory, John. Am I already in the client directory? Or sorry, the server directory? I am. Forever. Start. Index.js. Alright, so that should now be running. We can do a forever list. Okay. So one of the beauties of this is that that is now running. It's running in the background. I can actually log out of the server. It will not terminate our server. It's still running, and should it crash, it will attempt to restart it. So let's see if we can get this server and connect to it on port 3000 and hopefully see the same thing we saw earlier. And let's see. And we can't. Why not?
Oh,
because we didn't bother installing Node packages, John. now let's try. See if it's got a restart. Oh, guess it never got started. Forever start index. All right, let's see.
I don't think you ever copy the files. Did it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So it is now working completely. Yes.
We're gonna have to revisit all the steps and figure out why some of those things were giving us such a hard time.
You'll notice that all the problems I had, the biggest one was I probably should not have had an already existing GitHub repo that I was trying to do all this with. But I had practiced and I used the same name, and then I had to clear it all out and try and use it again. That was a mistake. That would have made earlier GitHub problems easier. The later one we had, while about trying to get the key, the private key, onto the new machine, which, by the way, since I'm going to edit it out, people who didn't get to see it, what I did was I just manually copied the file over. I basically created a file named id_rsa in the .ssh directory, and then I pasted my private key into it. That'll be edited out of this video so that you can't see what my private key is, but that's what I had to do to deal with that. There are alternatives there, and for somebody who's just starting out, I'd say one simple one would be to skip trying to clone everything out of GitHub. You could instead just download a zip file and put it on the machine and do it that way. I don't love that though, because one of the beauties of having it like this now is that if I made a change, if I in some way altered either the client side or the server side and I pushed changes to GitHub, I could now go into this directory and I could say git pull forever would restart, and boom. Or if forever didn't restart, then I could restart it manually. But either way, I would have the new one running on here. So there's good reasons to want to deal with having that whole thing be in GitHub as a simple way to avoid having to set up some big complicated distribution system or deployment system like Ansible or something like that. There are a whole variety of areas we could take this into. I made a quick list of them. I want to just talk real quick about that, and I think we'll wrap this up today. I was going to point out that we could connect a domain name to this. I talked a little bit about that in another video. We could use HTTPS, which we could get a free certificate from Let's Encrypt and use that to have a secure server. We could provide an actual API endpoint. We've already got a spot for it, because if we go into here, we could turn this into something that is our first API endpoint. We put it on a different address, and then we make it start doing something so that the Angular code that's over here can start calling an API on the server and doing something with it. And I would probably start with some canned data. So that would be one of the areas I would suggest we try moving this, and if we take it further. We could get better ways of getting the server set up, and in particular, better ways of doing deployment. But that's our initial pass at things. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you like this show, please hit like on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please tell all your friends. You can even there's a little bell up there. If you hit the little bell icon, then you get notified every time I do one of these videos. And there's going to be a lot more mentoring videos probably with Jonathan and with others as well. Not all of them will necessarily be coding. We may be doing debugging. We may be talking about career issues, things like how to get a job. I can go over resumes with people and other stuff. I hope you enjoyed this show. Thank you so much for watching. Please come again. Bye-bye. All right.